Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the best investor in California, Mr. Jason Pritchard. How you doing, sir?
I am doing great. Zuber, how are you?
I'm doing well. You know, you're the best of the best in California. I'm going to probably have to give you the country here in the next couple of months. So
Yeah, I need
you
a
got
little
some
bit
work
more
to do.
time there. Yeah, that's right. That's right, man.
Well, hey, one of the things I wanted to do today is talk to you about an article I read from Grant Cardone where he referenced why entrepreneurs fail.
Let's do it. I
You,
love Cardone. Let's see what he has
yeah.
to say. I like it. Yeah.
So again, the reason I want to bring this to you is you basically are one of the entrepreneurs who kind of burned the boats, right? You kind of
Yes.
had the day job. You kind of said, I had enough. This doesn't fulfill me. Got support from the wife, and then burned the boats and just went after. And
That's a very, very fair characterization of our situation. Yeah, we threw all the other options out the window and just went with plan A, man. That was it.
well, here's the deal. It'll be very interesting because again, you are clearly successful. I don't think anybody can argue that at this point. But the first couple of years, I'm sure, were rocky. Something that you probably wouldn't want to repeat. But now that you're here, there's a lot of people that are thinking about it. So this is what Grant Cardone says. Number one,
okay,
discipline, lack of discipline, really, really hurts folks. What do you think about that?
I agree 100%, and I think that is something that I'm constantly with the structure, the schedule, the routine, the things that I put into like my day-to-day life. All of that comes back to discipline because I'm a believer of the thought process that the way we do one thing is the way that we do everything else in our life. So I see so many people, Zuber, and this is interesting. I talk to so many people that are just kind of mailing it in every other area of their life. Their health is not great. They show up to work. They don't put out maximum effort. Their family, their marriage, whatever, all these other categories. And then they want to transition into a business like real estate, and they want to perform at the highest levels. And my first question is, how do you think it's going to be possible to be average or like below average in all these other areas and then come in? And it's just completely incongruent. It doesn't make sense. And for me, a lot of that comes back to discipline, the daily habits, and learning how to do that hard work every single day, man. And, you know, I know you and I talk about it. I know work ethic is a big thing. And a lot of that stems back to discipline. You can't have success without being an undisciplined person or with being an undisciplined person.
Yeah, so I obviously resonate. People that kind of follow my channel, traditionally speaking, I would say aren't entrepreneurs, right? They're investors.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of who I speak to. And a lot of them have full-time jobs, right? So I think it's even more important to be disciplined if that's kind of who you are, because you don't have time, right? You've already selling 10, 12, 14 hours of your day. Here, you've still got to sleep, got family, you have to be disciplined.
So there's a trade-off. When you go the route that I went and you burn all the boats, it's scary and you're operating without a safety net, right? And so like those first few shots that you take, you can't really miss them. You know what I mean? Or you can't miss as many, right? But the flip side is that I could have all of my time into real estate, right? And what you said is very true. When you're working, you keep that day job, you kind of figure out the real estate stuff like on the weekends and nights and these other things. The discipline is even that much more important because you have an 8 to 10 hour commitment with work. Then you've got your family, and then, you know, half your day, there's 12 to 14 hours of your day right there that's gone, right? And so I think the thing that I always tell people is we don't cut out work and we don't cut out family. Those things have to remain a priority. It's everything else. And can you be disciplined enough not to sit down and binge, you know, 3 hours of Netflix at night and instead sit there and watch content from Zuber and then apply and study and learn these things, right? It's huge. Discipline is a huge thing. I would think you would be very hard pressed to find somebody that's highly successful in any area of their life that doesn't have discipline as one of their like key pillars of their routine and their day-to-day, man. So yeah, I think it's big.
Yeah, and then one last thing, we'll go to number two. Discipline for me, especially to those full-time employees, it's also permission not to do everything else.
Yes.
Right. I talk about a buy box, and my buy box was the Mayfair district. It was 3 and 4 bedroom houses, 2-car garages, you know, 2 baths. That was it for 3 freaking years.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. That means nothing else.
Yep.
Not the Big Garden, not the Tower, not Clovis, not multifamily, it's this.
It is. And doing something consistently for 3 years, dude, 3 years doesn't sound like a lot in the scheme of things, but in the beginning, when you don't have anything going on, that 3 years feels like 30 years, man. And so I've always said finding success in this business in life, I believe in this business specifically, I believe it's simple. It's not easy, right? And if you can just stay disciplined and do these kind of Monday, get up, make your calls, go on your appointments, do that day in, day out, and you can just put blinders on, don't pick your head up and check the score of the game. You know what I mean? Just put your blinders on and go to work. And I think you'll find success.
Yeah, it's funny that I didn't plan to go here, but you and I obviously have a commission-based background. We're very much in the pipeline management and all of that. And you're right, dude. It's just like put stuff top of funnel, keep working, right?
That's it.
It's percentages from there, and then
it's all just the law of averages, guys. Like what people don't understand. And I have a really good friend of mine. His name's Andrew Rodriguez, and him and I have been best friends since we were little kids. And I've been slowly trying to get him like more involved, and he's like nibbling around the edges right now. And he comes from the same background as us. And I had a call with him last week, and I was telling him, I was like, Drew, listen, I said, you have such a competitive advantage over if you're a teacher or an engineer or somebody that isn't necessarily used to what's involved, right? When you are going and on all these appointments, all the rejection that you're dealing with, all of these things that we've just been doing and have found success in for the last 20 years, that's a big advantage, man. You know what I mean? And so coming in and realizing that on the front end of this business, it really very much is a sales-based position, and learning how to navigate that at the beginning. It's not easy for most people. Most people can't make 200 or 300 calls a day and do that day in and day out for weeks and months on end until they finally get the outcome they're looking for, man. So yeah.
Well, that'll lead to number 2, patience. I don't know whether it's social media or the whole want it yesterday microwave society or whatever it is, but the game we've chosen to play does produce amazing results, but not without time. It's not a tomorrow. This is not a crypto or NFT that could go up, X% in 3 seconds. It's a long game.
This is the thing that I struggle with the most. I just naturally lack a lot of patience in a lot of areas of my life. Mm-hmm. And in business, especially, it's hard because social media is such a powerful tool, and it gives you this reach that we've never had before. And it allows you to impact like such a wide range of people, right? And I think it's an amazing tool, but it also can be very difficult when you start looking at other people and you start playing that comparison game, and you're like, whoa, dang, this guy started or this girl started same time as me. They're way up here, I'm way down here, right? Like I want to be way up here. And it's just learning how to exercise patience. What I've learned and what I believe, and whatever your viewers choose to believe, whether it's God, the universe, or whatever, I believe that the door of opportunity does not open until we're ready to walk through that door, right? And so I think instead of waiting and wondering like, why is this not opening? Why is this result not coming? Why is not blah, blah, blah? Just focus on being the best version of yourself. Because I believe that if that door opened too soon, if you wouldn't be ready for all the things that are required on the other end of it, you're just not going to be, right? And you're going to end up experiencing a very big failure. And that's what it's been like for me. I'm doing the amount of volume that I'm doing now. I wouldn't have been able to handle it 2 or 3 years ago, because I wouldn't have been able to handle all the responsibilities that come along with what my business looks and feels like right now. I just wasn't ready for that stuff, right? And it took being patient over these last few years and growing into the type of business owner that I am today in order to be able to really do it. So patience is huge, and I struggle with it too a lot. And the way that I try to overcome it, or at least get in a good space with it, is practicing gratitude and realizing how grateful I am for where I'm at today, right? So if you would have told Jason 8 years ago that the Jason now is doing the things that he's doing now, I wouldn't even have believed it. And I would have been thrilled, dude. You know what I mean? Like I would have been so happy that, it's like, oh, you own these rentals and you're doing this and you're really like living all these awesome and amazing experiences. And, I think remembering where we came from and practicing gratitude for those things helps me exercise patience more. So yeah, I think it's huge.
Yeah. For me, one of the things I just want to make clear with everyone is if you're signing up for one rental at a time or any in the real estate game, realize you're in for 3 to 5 years minimum, right? I think the power of real estate happens when you have the option to recycle capital, right? That's when you can explode things. You don't have to, right? One of the guys I speak with once a week, Dion, he's never recycled capital, right? He just let the income snowball from house hacking, let him buy stuff faster.
Yeah.
But it's a decision point when you can go back and do a cash out refi or a 1031 exchange because you have a bunch of equity. That's where the real power again, because you can use, like Norris Drive, 20,000 bucks. Did a cash out refi, bought Ferris and Terrace. Then did a 1031 exchange in the Vassar. Still own Vassar today. That one $20,000 investment's been used 3, 4, 5 times. I've got it back 5-fold. Yeah, it's just, it gets fun, but realize this is 3 to 5 years of a slow grind. I would have never guessed Norris Drive would have turned into what it turned into now. It just takes time. I'm sorry.
And it was really like year 4 or 5 for me when I look back, when things really started to click for me, right? Like we had success prior to that, but I was still very much flying by the seat of my pants, and I didn't really kind of know like what I know now. And it was like sometime around year 5, things really clicked and I shifted gears, and then I made another kind of big leap in my business. So I would agree that time frame is important. I think once you can kind of get there, you get past that imposter syndrome that I think a lot of people deal with at the beginning, right? Because our belief system and our self-image is maybe tied to this corporate job or this whatever we were doing, right? For my wife, it was high school counseling. For me, it was this old corporate America job that I was in, right? And I think it takes some time to break out of that belief system because we're so used to looking at ourselves through this same lens. But once you can get 3, 4, 5 years in and you can accumulate whatever your goal is in real estate, whether it's rentals or flips or whatever it is that you're doing, once you can build a track record that's that long, you have enough proof to say to yourself like, wow, this could be the rest of my life if I want it to be. You know what I mean? But you've got to get to that 3-5 year mark first, guys. And you can't rush to get there, man. So yeah, it's patience is huge.
I love that. So number 3, this is I think a particular strength of yours and a particular weakness of mine. We've talked about this before, but it's thinking big or not thinking big enough.
Yeah.
Big enough. So let's talk about that, because that's something I think you're comfortable doing.
Yes.
And I am not.
Yeah. And I wasn't always like that. And I think the biggest thing that allowed me to get there was proximity to other big thinkers. As soon as I got around to people that were other big thinkers, right? It was 2 things happened. It was one, I just being around them, it allowed me to like look at them, and I don't want to say size them up, but I could see that they didn't have anything different than me. That was a big thing. Like for me, it was like, okay, I've spent enough time around this person and I can see all the things that they're doing. And I know that I'm capable of doing those same things. And so the only thing really standing in my way is me, right? And so let's just get clear about that. Like I'm the one that is creating these limiting belief systems that are right here. So let me work on doing that. And then being around them, they show you, at least even if it's just observing them or talking and just asking, how did you guys overcome these belief systems? What did you do? How did you get here? Right. And I think it's those 2 things. It's learning that you're just as capable of doing all these big things that these other people are doing. And then the tactical things that you need in order to get there. I think I picked up both of those by putting myself around other big thinkers. And I think if you're struggling with that, that's the biggest hack that you can do right now, is just try to get around as many big thinkers as possible. And that proximity is very powerful.
I love that. And I clearly need to do a better job of that. I want to go back to Jason 6 months after you burn the boats.
Yeah.
Right. I think if I remember your story, you've got 1 deal. You might finally be working on your 2nd deal at that point. What was thinking big for Jason back then, do you think?
I'll tell you this story. I may have told you this before or not, but I'll say it again, and it's worth repeating because it shows what like at that time in my life, what I thought was big, right? So this was a little bit after this time frame, but it was still in that same period of my life, right? Like we had completed maybe 6 or 7 deals, and I ran into a guy that became a really good friend and somebody I would consider a mentor. His name's Alan Folio. And Alan, I remember running into him at a meetup, and this is the very first time that I met him. And after the event, I went over and just introduced myself, and I could just tell there was something about him that was different than all the other people that were there. And so that's one hint that I would give you. If you're going to these events, right, and you've never been there, you're just going to pick up on people that think and act and talk differently, right? So you have to be intentional about the way that you get in proximity with them is first, just go up and introduce yourself. Don't overthink it, right? Just talk to them and see if you can connect. And that's what I did with Alan. And I remember talking with him at this event, and he was asking me what I did. And I said, hey, I'd, done 5 or 6 deals. And I was asking him what his plan was for the rest of the year. And he told me that he had 16 rentals and he was going to buy 16 more rentals by the end of the year. And it was like June already. Right. And in my head, I remember thinking, like I didn't have any rental properties and I barely like done like 5 or 6 deals. And in my head, I was like, how the hell is this guy going to buy 60? It's June. Like, how is he going to buy 16 more properties in 6 months? And I remember going home and talking with Jen, my wife, Jennifer. And I said, look, if you and I ever get 30 plus rentals, you're going to retire. I'm going to retire. We're not going to do anything. So that's what thinking big was to me back then, right? Like at that stage of the game, right? And no joke, like this is no joke, Zuber. So that was like about 12 or 18, maybe 18 months into my real estate journey at that time, right? Okay. 2 years later, I had 30 rentals. Okay. And I attribute a lot of it to just being around guys like Alan. You know what I mean? And I remember talking to him that day. I was like, hey, dude, like, can we go grab some coffee and talk? And, you know, I'm happy to share what I'm doing, right? And this is what's working for me. And if you can use any of these things in your business, then great. And we ended up just connecting on a regular basis. And just that one relationship and relationships like that were ones that really just, you know, changed the trajectory of my life and business, man. And yeah. So it's funny now, like you think 30 rentals was like, you know, the big thing. And then we got it so quickly and you realize like, wow, what if I had said what if I had met a guy that said 300 rentals, right? Instead of 30, right? What would have happened, right? And so I've always found that we will, whether we say 30 or 300, right? We'll do what's required to get to whatever that mark is. Okay. And so then the question becomes, why did I set the mark at 30 instead of 300? And for most people, it's because they don't believe that they can get to 300. So we've got to work on unpacking that. Right? We've got to figure out, why do I feel like I'm not worthy of having 300 rentals? Why do I think it's not possible? Because you and I both know that it can be done. We know plenty of people 1 degree of separation away from them that have done that same exact thing. Right? So then it becomes a mindset issue. And that's why for me, I'm constantly talking about mindset, posting about mindset, because for me, that's what differentiates the people that are way up here versus ones that can just never get it done.
Yeah. So now let's put a pin in this one. What does thinking big look like today for Jason?
Thinking big for me is I want to make $1 million a month. That's what thinking big for me is. And so I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there yet. Right. I have an idea, and it's not a vague idea, but I do have some, you know, just things with our current businesses and new ventures and things that we're trying that I know that can get me in that place. But here's what I would tell people is most people get caught up in the how. And I think you have to set the target first, right? And you've got to keep that target front of mind. And you've constantly got to do things either through your routine or whatever, where you don't just set it and then put it in your notebook and put it in the closet and then never see it again, right? That goal has to be something that you're constantly thinking about, right? And over time, I think if you stay consistent and persistent and you practice patience, the other two things that are there, and you just show up every day and do the work, opportunities will present themselves, ideas will come to you, things will just happen. And that's just how the manifestation processes work for me. I mean, we're very, you know, obviously we do the work and we show up and we do that, but I think you have to have faith that you can get there, at least for me. So I think, I don't know how and when it's going to happen, but I feel pretty confident that it's going to happen. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Yeah,
absolutely. And you do a lot of this thinking big and mindset on your Instagram page, which everybody has to follow. Do me a favor. What is that? And let's also give your wife's page a shout, because I find following you both is pretty amazing.
Yeah, my page is just my first and last name, guys, Jason Pritchard. And then my wife is Mrs. Jen Pritchard. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think we've figured out, it's one, I was talking, my dad was visiting me this weekend and I was sitting down having a conversation with him. And I told him, I said, Dad, I'm in probably the best place that I've ever been in my life, where my business, my marriage, my relationship with my kids, like all these areas, right, are just firing for me, like on all cylinders. And it's just a really cool, amazing position to be in, considering where I was like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, dude, it's pretty cool. We try to be very open and authentic about our journey, and the things that we share are 100% us. So yeah, if we can provide value to anybody watching, please let us know.
Yeah, folks, do me a favor, ping Jason Pritchard today. Just let him know you appreciate his content. You appreciate him being a part of this channel every other week. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.